Ho ho ho, well guess who it is? It's Scripter Claus, and I'm today going to tell you what my cousin has been doing for about the past 2 months almost. And of course I'm going to show you that utilizing my recently coded space-time rewind display. I'm honestly not even sure if letting Scripter Claus do the intro was a good idea. Hey, you are my simulated past scripter blocks. Now do your job and start yapping about what you made. Okay, almost 2 months ago, I had an idea. See, when I was still making Roblox Studio content, at least at the start, there was a game that was trending at the time, also for YouTubers, which was called Friday Night Funkin'. And I had always thought of that it must be quite difficult to recreate, because my approach at ever making games would be that I would first think out how the basic concept of the game works, purely theoretical code, less than exactly how the game now functions. But it's more like, for me, to figure out how to make Snake, at some point I just had the epiphany that instead of trying to transmutate the entire table based on other elements, you just add an element in the front and cut off the last element or not. So, what I didn't have for this game, though, was this epiphany. But I had thought that if I just go towards it thinking, hey, it has to be possible, and if I just start and basically not let myself give up, then I will find a way to do it. And this started a pattern of me slowly spiraling into absolute insanity from frustration of why stuff wouldn't work and why it's been now almost 2 months since my latest upload, which I did not at all intend for. So, the first thing I did was I designed the character, and now finally I can make you watch a super sped up time lapse whilst I don't have to reanimate my character and make narrations anymore. Go! Okay, well, I had expected that time lapse to be at least a little bit longer, but what I next up made was I actually started getting to work on coding the actual game. So what I started off doing was the most logical thing, and I started to get the basic system working of it detecting whether you press the correct key or not, and that it spawns and renders the notes according to which song you have selected. And with that, coding time lapse, go!
After 2 hours of coding, you might expect that at least this bare bones of a system would actually function to the extent that I would hope for. In other words, to the extent of not malfunctioning in the most simple circumstances. Well, if you thought so, you were wrong. The system did not at all do what I had hoped. So, I decided to add a revamp after which it would generate a pattern that was to see which keys should have been pressed and check if this pattern was pressed, and only if so would it count the result as correct. Coding time lapse, go. Okay, and what do you do once you have finished the core gameplay functionality for a game? Well, of course, you build in the very not required additional features, such as in my case, I want to make keybinds and a stat display. The keybinds will just be so that in case you wish to be special and use different keybinds than the ones that I had predefined, then you can. You just click on the button that you want to switch out the key for, and then click the key, and then you can use that key instead. Put the time lapse for that now as well. Go! Oh yeah, and also this was not visible in the video, as the way I'd debug this is I'd in the browser separately, I'd have also the game open, and I'd have the console open to test if stuff worked. As you do, I'd just be debugging it using print statements to figure out which lines of code execute properly. And at some point, I had it so that it would, at a certain line of code, print out S. And for some reason, and this is not made up, when I go to check, it would print out S and a lot of different other letters, such as K and O. I have not figured out what it must be. I imagine I had somehow managed to maybe forget a specific semicolon at the end of the line, which then caused the compiler to be confused and generate code that would a bit malfunction to what I had actually expected, but it was definitely very confusing at the time. Well, now back to the coding time lapse. Okay, so the stats and the key binding actually works now. I'm still going to be working a bit more on the stat display in the future, but it's mostly done now. And the key binds are, I'm pretty sure, not going to cause any more problems from now. What I next up wanted to do was I wanted to make a main menu title screen. And I wanted the game to be called Beat Hitter and had found a nice font which was free to use and everything. I wanted to try to incorporate it into the website. An issue that I had was, though, that because I seem to be using a version of processing.js, which is highly outdated, I am pretty sure it's around 10 years outdated, I was struggling, and after, I'm not kidding you, 1 hour and 20 minutes, I finally got the genius epiphany of just typing it out in a program where it works, and then just using it as an image instead of using it directly as text. When I had gotten that finished, I wanted to add some form of distro light, so randomly colored circles that would be moving over the screen. And this took around 2 hours. That's now the code in time lapse. Go! So, after I had managed to trade the light to a standard that was not horrific but somewhat acceptable, I decided that what the main menu now needed was a distro ball dangling over the title. So, after having with definitely no struggle created a somewhat acceptable result that I lovingly call a distro ball, I decided that what I now needed to make was what should represent some form of a dance floor. This was way too much turtle because I wanted it to look somewhat three-dimensional, and I had thought that it was going to be rather easy to create an algorithm that would be able to generate. After so much struggle trying to come up with a way to generate the floor, I had the bad and better than previous idea to just manually position each and every one of the tiles and sizes myself. The issue is that each of the tiles has 4 points to be positioned, which is precise coordinates have to meticulously be set manually. So with a 5 by 5 grid, I would have to set 100 coordinates manually. Every time I would want to check if it looked any better, I would have to press Ctrl and S, and then I'd only be able to see the tiny improvement, if any. Does this feel like a lot of time lapses? Well, if so, then buckle up, because I'm only halfway through my footage. So, what I did next was I wanted to make a really satisfying button that would open up with the free play menu. This button was going to have multiple different states for if you are hovering over it, if you have your mouse pressed while hovering over it, or if none of those. And for each of those states, it would display at varying different ways, so that it really looks like you are pressing or not pressing a really big button. What do you do after you made the button for menu? Of course you make the menu. Oh yeah, and I made so that it generates buttons to start the songs. So, after I added so that the song buttons get generated automatically, I added functionality so that the generated buttons can be scrolled through. The issue is that to do such a thing, you need to make sure that they are not clipping or anything like that. I also added a neat little animation for when you finish the song, and added a message that is displayed when you finished the song that will judge you with multiple different ratings, ranging from I would have expected more to outstanding. And also, I added so that it renders the screen red for half a second when you press the wrong button to simulate some sort of damage taking. As you might have been noticing until now, as the arrows, or whatever you might consider what is supposed to indicate when you're supposed to press which button, I have still been using this one sprite which I had actually intended for an entirely different purpose. So, it's time to change that. And now it should just be a simple deal of putting them in. That should just go quite fast. And oh yeah, that is already finished. So now we can come up to what I'm doing afterwards. Because do you remember how I complained about the system that I made so that it would detect whether you press the track button or not? And how it was such a pain to fix that? Well, lucky me, because now I'm in the devastation to experience that it in fact was still not functional. This time it took way too long. Okay, I promise you that that was the last time I need to fix this system. On a brighter note, for this game to be complete, I can't just say that this is done, it still needs sound effects. So first off, I started to make a sound for if you press the wrong button. And then I implemented it, and I really would have expected that it would take a lot longer, but it turned out to only require literally 2 lines of code. Something I realized the game now needed was that, for instance, if you press a note, then it will give you a random message of how good you did, as well for if you press the wrong note or any other such cases, and it would always give you a note, it would give you a message to judge you. And finally comes what some might consider the most important aspect of this type of game. Of course, I need a song for the game. So I got to work on composing a song. Something you might want to know is that I do not have any sort of experience in composing music or similar. My entire approach to this was to add random notes, and if they wouldn't have sounded good, then I would simply remove them and add different random ones. Once I had gotten a result that was somewhat decent, then I would continue to add more random notes at the end, and once again replace those with random notes until that sounded good. And after repeating this for enough time, I got what I might consider a fine result. After almost 3 hours of working on this song, this is now the final result. And now with a song made, the last thing I now have to do is implement so that songs can be played in the game. Okay, the game is finally done. Don't click off, there is still some interesting stuff I'm going to tell. You can play it on my website at scriptedblocks.github.io. And in opposed to the previous video, the one where I made Snake, for this video I had actually recorded 100% of the footage. I'm pretty sure that the footage totals up to around 30 hours. The annoying thing is that my editing software only allows for up to 10 times speed, which means that for each and every one of the time lapses, I would have to import the footage into a new project, set it to 10 times speed, export the project, then import the exported version of the project into my main project, and then set it to 2 times, 4 times, or 5 times, and sometimes even 10 times speed. That is why I don't have displays for the how many times speed. That would be like 15 times speed. And yes, the displays are actually accurate. They are not a lie. Anyways, for what video I'm going to make next, you can actually make a decision. I'm going to link the community poll in the description and or maybe pin comment. And there are two options. The first one is a crude snake AI that just plays snake. The benefit for that video is that I already made it, so I only need to make a video out of it. The other video is for an infinite song generator website. For that video, I have not made anything yet, but because for the next 2 weeks I won't be able to do any video editing anyways, I guess it might be the choice because I'd probably be working that. Also, I know that the thumbnail probably says something like, "This took 40 hours," and that is actually true because editing the video took around 10 hours, and the thumbnail actually refers to the video, not the game. I actually had the game finished for the video almost a week ago, but then I had to edit, and I thought that it would be a good idea to try and get the video out for the 25th. And I'm not going to lie, I had multiple times thought, nope, that won't be possible. And then I thought, maybe. And this cycle repeated, and currently I'm editing the final bits of the video on the 24th, and I'm hoping that I can get the final bits finished in time. And so I know that the system for detecting whether you pressed the wrong or right note, and if it was a late note maybe, and all of that stuff. And I'm legitimately kind of scared to release the game because I fear that the second people play it, they are going to find bugs, and I need to fix them, even though I want to just take the whole system, throw it out of the window into a garbage truck, let the garbage truck throw it into an incinerator, order an airstrike onto the incinerator, and much, much more. Anyway, thanks for watching.